Cindy, I can really let people in. Latecomers. All right.
Good morning, everybody, all those on virtual and those here in the room. Welcome to the August 20th, 24 quarterly meeting of the North Carolina Drivers Education Advisory Committee, or often referred to as the DEAC. Don't you love acronyms? This legislative required committee is outlined in the North Carolina Driver Education Strategic Plan and State Board of Education Policy. I'm Dr. Cheryl Leonard, Chair of the DEAC, and I call this meeting to order. I want to welcome everyone again. We're so glad that you all are able to be here with us today, not only in presence, but also virtually. Hopefully our computer technology will be exactly the way it needs to be today, and we'll have no glitches. If we do, please be patient and we'll make sure we get back up online. A huge welcome to our on-site visitors and stakeholders of the state traffic safety education program. Please be reminded that the meeting shall comply with public meeting laws, including the use of Robert Rules of Order for administration of this meeting. Our agenda and other materials are available online through the DPI State Board of Education website, www.dpinc.gov, on the driver education section page, and everyone should have that today. The meeting is also audio streamed through a link located at the bottom of the Driver Education Advisory Committee page. And please be advised the meeting is recorded and will be made available via the YouTube app as soon as possible. Thank you, Cindy, for being here, and all of you again for being here. And Dr. Lynn, would you like to say?
I'd be delighted to. Good morning. I too want to welcome all of you to the Driver Ed Advisory Committee meeting. We appreciate those of you who have joined us in person this morning, and we are glad those of you who are joining us virtually could be here. We always like to invite you into the home of education in the Department of Public Instruction, because we do believe this is very much an education program intended to support the health, well-being, and current and future success of our young drivers. So traffic safety is critical in that education component. Thank you again for your presence. If you need directions outside of the room as we move forward, please don't hesitate to ask someone who's just seated outside the room. Restrooms are within a convenient area. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We look forward to a very productive meeting today.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'll echo that. We do look at a number of guest speakers and a number of very interesting topics that we're going to hear about today. And in a few minutes, I will turn that all over to Carl so that he will be able to enlighten us. The members of this committee are vitally important, as all of you know, and each one of you play a specific role in representing your stakeholders and your different agencies. And we are excited about the expertise you provide and the feedback that you provide to us to make this one of the best and the most recognized teen traffic safety education programs in the country. I do a lot of traveling and I'm always out bragging, but more often than not, I don't have to, because people come, oh, you're from North Carolina. Oh, you've got the best. Yes, we do. And we say it out loud all the time. At this time, I'd like to recognize two new members recently approved by the State Board of Education at our August meeting. First, I'd like to introduce the Honorable Tony Moore, who will hold a seat representing Public Schools Unit with a DMV commercial school partner. He's the owner of North Carolina Driving School, which is one of the largest driver education schools in North Carolina and the nation. Mr. Moore, you present? He may have stepped out for just a minute. We'll come back to him in a few seconds. All right. And our next guest, actually a new member, I'd like to introduce is our new student representative, Mr. Joshua Norris. And Mr. Norris, are you present? They can hear us, right?
What does it mean, verified?
Mr. Norris is not on. Okay. So, all right. Well, we might save this to the end when Mr. Moore gets back on. And what I'd like to do now is read the ethics statement. So committee members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this committee. Does any member of the committee know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with interest to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. Okay, hearing none. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussions on the matter and from voting on the matter. Purpose of the North Carolina Driver Education Advisory Committee shall be to advise and make recommendations to the State Board of Education through the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction on the implementation of the North Carolina Driver Education Strategic Plan and other issues related to driver education and traffic safety. Our mission, composed of experienced and driver perspectives, the Driver Education Advisory Committee provides research-based information and recommendations to the State Board of Education to implement and maintain the driving education plan. The Advisory Committee advocates for certified professional teachers, high-quality instruction, and up-to-date curricula to prepare each student to be an informed and responsible driver. So at this time, I'd like to call on Mrs. Taylor, who will do our roll call and record the vote. And in that, we would ask, we have approval of the agenda and the meeting minutes. Now, before we do that, if I could first get a motion to accept the minutes from the May 21st, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make
Okay. All right.
Eddie Jordan,
And do we have a second?
Devin Tanner,
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none. All right, and then I would like the floor, entertain a motion to accept the agenda for today's meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda. Eddie Jordan.
Thank you, sir. And do we have a second?
I'll second. Devin Tanner.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the agenda? No? All right, hearing none, I will turn it over to Mrs. Taylor for roll call and approval. If you'll just say your name and present and yes or no.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Dr. Brady Gill,
Present.
Sherry Vernelson,
Present, yes to both.
Kevin Harrison,
Yes, to both.
Eddie Jordan,
Yes to both.
Tony Moore, Asim McGill,
Present.
Joshua Norris, Kella Hatcher, Marsha Kelly, Tanya Baldwin, Terry Fuller, Bobby Dixon,
Yes to both.
Present, yes to both.
Daniel Carter,
Present and approve both.
Devin Tanner,
Yes to both.
Ebony Baker,
Present and yes to both.
Dr. Leonard, you do have one.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, at this time, we'd like to get an update of what's going on with DPI, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Carl Logan.
Thank you, Dr. Leonard, Vice Chair. Aharon. Chad, I don't know if you can hear or not, but we did not hear you answer the role. I know you're on.
Oh, sorry about that. I thought I muted present and accept both. Hi, Cindy. Just saying hi.
Yes. Okay. So Cindy, I guess I'm operating this, am I not?
Yes.
Since I give the directions, I don't usually follow my own directions. Pardon me while I get caught up. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to share with you this morning. I just have 4 quick items that I want to discuss.
Quick pause, a little technical difficulty.
Pardon me for just a moment here, but there's some handouts available to you online. If you go to the State Board of Education website, where the normal education State Board of Education materials are available to you, you have the ability to download those. There have been some recent changes to that today, and so if you'll wait until after the meeting, if you're going to download those, keep them, or distribute those. So anyway, so we appreciate your patience on that. Unfortunately, I am an office of one. I am the chef, cook, and bottle washer. So I've made a few mistakes along the way, but we're going to work through those. It's like we do daily. So I appreciate your patience. What we'd like to do first here is these are the 4 bullets that we will talk about this morning. And what I'd like to do first is, excuse me, do an annual review of the advisory committee members' requirements. And this, like Dr. Leonard stated in her opening, was that this is a statutory required committee. It has policy and also outlined in the strategic plan. So just to advise the members or remind the members and the people who are listening at home, the members are to confer and advise on matters pertaining to the establishment, or excuse me, of rules and to carry out the duties of the driver education program. They review and update guidelines for the operation of the driver education program. They promote the requirements of GDL, and it just happened to be here in the room is Dr. Leonard, whose agency, the Governor's Highway Safety and UNC Highway Research Center, Mr. Justin Owens, they happen to author the first graduated driver license program in the country. So we're thankful for them, what they've done in the past and what they are continuing to do to promote traffic safety. Provide a communication channel between the driver education community and the stakeholders, stimulate public awareness, and serve as an advocate for the statewide driver education program. And without any further delay on this, but I assure that all of the members are aware of those, and we just want to make sure that the people or the stakeholders in the communities and local programs understand that they do have representation and that there is a qualified group of people who are carrying out the needs for the districts. Is it okay? Also, I had the opportunity of attending a national ADSEA, the American Driving Traffic Safety Education Association's national conference this year. I found out that the association has over 1,000 members. Notable attendees this year was the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. They had two members there, or Cheryl, got Cheryl on mine here. Jackie Milani, who is the special program specialist, and Mr. Jim Marshall, who is the director of special programs with the country. So it was very nice to be able to meet and talk with them on matters pertaining to traffic safety, and knowing that NHTSA is at our table there was very enlightening and very rewarding for us. So thank them for being in attendance. Also, the program or the conference is loaded with information for administrators, directors, and teachers. And there were a number of teachers there. And I want to take this opportunity very quickly to talk about how North Carolina shines at the National Association as well as the Southeast region. There are a number of people that I ran into from the state and was able to share and receive insight from, even ran into our own Eddie Jordan there at the conference. We had an opportunity to speak very briefly. I like to talk to him a lot longer, that's why I say very briefly. But anyway, and Mr. Connie Sessoms and a number of other folks, Reggie Flight, who is a former section chief for driver education for the state of North Carolina, preceding me. And then there was Harold Fleming, who is the outgoing national president. And that we've had a number of Teacher of Excellence Award. But going back to Harold Fleming happens to be the employee for Jordan Driving School of the Carolinas, our own Eddie Jordan. So you had two things there.
And, you know, it's three of us total went.
Three.
Barbara Garment was there as well. We had
Awesome. Oh, that's right. I saw
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
That's right. Awesome. North Carolina represents or has positions on the executive board, the board of directors, and the Southeast presidents. We've had a number of, like I said, and we are normally the state with the most attendance at almost every conference that we go to. So that's been very nice to be able to run into our folks wherever we go. So anyway, and that conference also has 20 hours of professional development credit. So that's a little bit of a hint. Can you move along here? I'd like to share with the local leaders very quickly here. This is something that I received from our finance and business department regarding planning allotments. And I'm going to try to avoid using allotments because it's actually an estimate. And I'll tell you why in this presentation here. We start with the base amount of $31 million. We take away the DPI administrative funds, which now is only $164,690. The remaining funds that was with the administrative funds has now been put back into what we call the starting budget. And so from there, I understand through our resources that 30 million of that has been allocated to date. Please understand that there will be several adjustments throughout the year simply because of what we learned in May from our presenters of the special populations. Charter schools, we understand, they receive data back from their local charter schools on a monthly basis. And then we have the PSUs. There are several adjustments throughout the fall simply because of the adjusted ADMs that we have. Unfortunately, the legislature needs reports earlier in the year, sometimes beginning as early as January, I understand, which makes it impossible for our planning budgets to be accurate or be to or actually it just lends itself for us having an estimate. So we need you to understand that it's an estimate only and not you shouldn't be able to or shouldn't depend on it for planning your entire year or your budget. Also, we know that private schools, and Mr. Dixon is on here, from his presentation that he gave, we understand that private schools report their ADM at the end of the year. And if I say any of this wrong, Mr. Dixon, please correct me, but you receive that information at the end of the year. We did have a discussion, and there's a possibility that we can probably pull from the 8th grade, but still that is only an estimate as the private schools increase or change their enrollment through the summer, as well as homeschool. Homeschool students, we do not have a way of knowing the number of homeschool students available in each county simply because of the statutory requirements not allowing that. What we have discussed is using the previous year's number of homeschool students that we served as our beginning budget. So the counties who report homeschool students, we report those to our budget and finance department. But we are required to serve all of those homeschool students, whether there's a number for them or not. Possibly, I'll just say possibly, because this committee could actually recommend us. I'm not putting anything on your plate. But what we could do is we could work with the Division of Non-Public Education and see if we can request homeschool parents to register with their local boards of education, their PSUs, so that in time to be able to be counted, and then we could use that for an estimate. That's not off the table. So that is something that we should or could be discussing. So again, the recommendation is that if your district has or if the districts that contract or have a service partner, I'm trying to change that lingo because contracting seems to lend itself as a district who contracts out their responsibility, which is not the case. The contractor or the service provider is simply a partner. It's a partner in offering driver education for the district. So that's the thing that we wanted to get across. Yes.
What approximately the number of students annually? Are the numbers of driver traffic safety students increasing among our group, or are they staying steady?
I'm glad you asked that question. I'm going to skip ahead since you asked that question.
Things foretold. Sorry, you don't have to. If that's in your presentation, please.
I don't know why it won't flip forward, Cindy. Or are you doing it? I'm sorry, but it's not working. Okay. One more piece on this slide here is that using those the numbers I've given you above and the variables, the ADMs, that's how we arrive at the average cost per student. And that can fluctuate. So that I know that we have a lot of districts that will call in asking for, what is our cost per student this year? That cost per student may change. The amount of money, the base amount doesn't change. So we've only got that much money to work with. We have to divide that equally based on the enrollment at each district. We don't know what that is. It is ever changing. So you can see, if you're a business owner, that is a variable that can present some issues. I have some recommendations. Another idea that you all may be considering is to have a contract template and take away some of the things that or not include in the bid process when districts are determining their service contracts, such as professional development. Professional development should not be included in a bid price because we don't know what it is. It's a variable. And we don't know how many teachers are going to attend these conferences, which are sometimes out of state, in state, or even regionally. So we don't know what that is. So again, there's certain things that should not be included in a bid price. And I know that I've had some conversation with some of the districts here recently. Regarding Dr. Dr. Harvey's question, get my doctor mixed up. Dr. Harvey's on the right. The 5-year look back here is we had this slide in the spring, and I showed it to you going back to 2019-20. The blue is the behind the wheel. It's the first time I've actually transposed those. So each year it's interesting that we've had more students doing behind the wheel than we have in classroom, which I think the strategy was to slow down the number of new students coming in because we had such a backlog in between. But you'll see that over the past 4 years, we increased our, I don't want to say production, but the number of students we serve. And I was hoping that we would have our 23-24 data in. We unfortunately have 15 districts that have not reported yet. So when we finish, we're probably going to be somewhere at or near or just above where we were in 22-23. So we will, once we receive that information from those new or those districts that are outstanding, then we will update you on those. The question, I'm coming to your answer to Dr. Harvey. Completion statistics. This is something that is alarming, or something that we knew was going to happen, but the completion statistics. If you look at this chart, the phase classroom behind the wheel, you've got the total number of completed. What I've done is the total number of students that we have completed the classroom right now, as of today, is 93,562. That's 60% of the total ADM for all of schools in North Carolina. There are 50 districts that are actually above the bar of 70%. We found that only about 70 to 80% of the students actually desire to take driver education. So that the bar is set at 70%. And as you can see there, we only have 50 districts that are actually above that 70% right now. Behind the wheel, 86,000 students behind the wheel, 56% of the total number of students available. And then we've got 63 counties or districts who are above the bar of 70%. So there's 55% of the total districts of the state, 115 districts. Oh, I see now it's got a delay. Some miscellaneous data. Fees. There are 82 districts that charge fees with IEPs and 504 plans or students needing additional resources. We've got 175 students. That means that districts spent more than the allotment per student, which was $208 last year. So there's 175 students that we spent additional funds on, and the districts are not required to do that. They can do that. I've got Sherry Van Nelson here with Exceptional Children that gave a great presentation on this in May regarding the additional resources. We continue to rely on the Exceptional Children's Partner and her, and thank you very much for that. And if there's anything you would like to say, please interrupt. But we're continuing to collect this data. In-house programs, we have 48. Right now, there's 42% of the total, and we've got 67 districts with a contracting partner. Going to continue using that word, a contracting partner. Reversions, we were about 1.5 million. That's approximate. I don't know the exact numbers when I was putting together this report. When you look at the average cost per student, considering the expenditures and the total amount that districts were provided for the initial allotment, the cost per student on an average actually ends up being higher simply because of the 70%. If 70% of your students take the program, then you're obviously going to have some additional funds left over. So the average cost is about $335 per student, which if we were to teach 100% of our students, that means that that's about where we should be per student total funding. So you would increase your total funding by that instead of being capped at 31 million. If you looked at that now, in the driver education world, there are two students. There's the classroom student and there's the behind the wheel student. Classroom students, the amount per student is much less because you have classrooms of 25 to 30, 35 is a max number of students, 50 is the max number of students, 35 in a normal classroom. That cost is somewhere around $30 to $50 per student. Behind the wheel is where the majority of funds are used. If you combine the number of students that we taught in the classroom and behind the wheel, it's about 180,000. That's a tremendous number of students being served when you consider that, because you've got two different laboratories. You've got the classroom and you've got the car and out in the public vehicle roads. Teachers, I'm waiting to get in the final survey on those to find out the number of teachers, but the last time we did the survey was around 1,250 teachers. Being that the Division of Motor Vehicles has inherited the entire teaching responsibility, we know that there's going to be some challenges for districts enrolling their teachers to get certified. Since January, since our program went away, I have received calls from at least 50 to 75 teachers wanting to go through our program. We've referred those to the Division of Motor Vehicles. I was hoping that Mr. Fuller would be on today, but he told me that he would not be able to be here earlier, but he will provide some insight onto how that is going. Without a teacher training program for the districts that do not have access to training programs, this is going to be critical for the existence of the program, in my estimation, over the next 2 to 3 years. We could end up in a position where that the program can't provide services to different areas of the state, mostly the rural areas where there may not be a contracting partner, a service provider that can train their own teachers. And I may have forgotten the slide. It's so slow. In response to Dr. Harvey's question, are we seeing an increase in students? As we discovered in the presentations this past May, there are increases in our charter schools, and as we heard from the director, that the charter schools were getting their new students from at the kindergarten age, and they're also transferring in from the public schools. The number of the number of private school students that we served this year was more than the previous year. And I wish I had that slide. I didn't transfer it over. And the number of homeschool kids that we served this year was increased by almost 1,000. So in all three of those categories, there have been increases in the number of students. So we started out the year with 148,000 students. I was using that figure, but I understand at the end of the year it was 155,000 after the ADM adjustments came in. So, but there's no increase in funding. So that's something that needs to be brought to the attention of the General Assembly, that actually, even though the money is staying the same, it's actually less per student because we're having more kids. With that, are there any questions from the membership? Or any questions, any additional questions?
I have one question. Moving back to your recommendations regarding things like professional development, is that something that you have in writing that can be sent out, your recommendations to the LEA coordinators?
I don't have that written, but that is my opinion based on combined information that we have received over the years. It's impossible for pardon me for putting the business hat on the commercial schools. I'm talking to Eddie Jordan, who is a providing partner, is that it is impossible for a business to establish or to administer a program with certain variables that can't be, that you don't know what they are. Simply put, you don't know what they are. You can't do it. So that's why the district and the providing partner needs to work together. There needs to be certain things that are set in stone, such as cost per student. But then there are other variables we don't know what that is. The company that's providing, if you have a requirement that they have an office in your district, then that is an expense that you should be expecting to pay for that, and that could be different in a rural community or in a urban community. It could be different. It's the same. It's different. So I'm a firm believer after all these years that there is no one size that fits all. But there needs to be some entity such as DPI to provide that information and guidance to our local boards of education. And so just having one set of parameters out there or letting everybody do what they want to, then we end up ultimately is that the students don't get served. And so I can get that to you.
That could be a discussion item among the committee members and in a separate venue, like a mega discussion, I'll call it. There's an issue that's emerged. It needs input from all stakeholders representing all entities.
I mean, I think yes, but I think it needs to come from the committee at large, especially you, Dr. Harvey, Dr. Leonard, because the group needs to speak. Because if you're not, the legislators need to know, the school systems need to know, and I think it does need to be something that could come from this committee, not necessarily from Carl Logan, come from this committee.
I think a healthy discussion among all stakeholders from all perspectives who are represented would be a good place to
Yeah.
begin. That's one person's opinion.
And I can tell you the number of moving parts of this, it's not a quick, easy fix, which this also ties into the allotment policy. The allotment policy we know is dated. It doesn't work the way it originally was set up. When it was originally set up was 30 years ago, when there was a different time and a space. Some of you weren't born yet. But so there's a dire need for that, yes. And this committee is where that should be born. And it's because of your responsibilities is to confer and provide expert knowledge to our department. Yes, absolutely. So I would highly recommend that. And that's not something that you need to bring to a motion now, but it is something that needs to be discussed and studied on how to do that, because that's a huge challenge. It is the one thing right now that has, before I get into that, we have some special presentations. And then we'll come back to that discussion, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Without objection, Dr. Leonard, Chair Leonard?
Yes.
All right. As we stated before, the purpose of these presentations is to provide a broader view of how stakeholders are impacted by or impact the program. I'm going to provide some high-level introductions of these, so we are sure that this will generate some discussion to accomplish our goal. So it may lead to some updates of policy and a strategic plan. How about that? This happened to be the next thing I was going to read here. First, Ms. Baker, you ready?
I'm ready. Can everyone hear me okay?
All right. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
And Cindy? Tell me what to do. Is she a co-host? Just click. Am I too close? There we go. Ms. Ebony Baker, who is a member of the Driver Ed Advisory Committee. She represents the North Carolina PTA and is an at-large board director with Guilford County. Take it away, Ms. Baker.
Thank you so much. Good morning and greetings, Madam Chair and fellow committee members. I won't be before you very long. I have just a very brief update of the things that NCPTA has been doing, the efforts that we've been, our efforts towards helping getting the word out about the issues that are facing this committee and the driver education program at large. So we are the North Carolina's largest and oldest child advocacy program, right, organization. And it's our mission to make every child's potential a reality, but we don't just stop advocating when it comes to the child. We also advocate for healthy families and healthy communities. So we thought the best approach would be to educate families on the potential financial and social emotional impacts the DPI driver education program budgetary constraints may have. Next slide. Am I in control or? Okay, thanks. Thank you so much. Awesome.
It has a delay, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, so many of you may be familiar with the data here on these screens. So to the left, we have a map of the average pre-COVID commute for the state of North Carolina for people who are 16 years or older, and the average is 24.5 minutes. This is data from 2014 to 2019. The darker colors, if you can see, are areas where the commute may be longer. On the right, we have a map that illustrates just what parts of our state are considered rural. I'm using air quotes. You can't see me use air quotes because the definition seems to be changing every few years or so. So 1 in every 3 people in North Carolina live in a rural area. So as we look at these two maps, we can see that the areas that have the darker coloring are areas where the commute is going to be longer, right? And they tend to be rural, tend to be more rural. They also tend to be areas where public transportation isn't readily available. And if you can get a cab in these areas, the fare is going to be kind of costly, right? And in full disclosure, I'm originally from rural Eastern North Carolina. And let's say we had a teen who lives in Jones County, right? The nearest job, if you can't find a job in Jones County, is going to be a 15-minute ride one way, 45 another, or 30 another. A teen in Jones County is not likely to be able to take the city bus to their job at Gulf and Dolphin in Carteret County. That's just not going to happen, right? And if they can get a ride share to come out to them, the cost is going to be prohibitive. It's going to eat up whatever paycheck that they've made. Okay. So if we can move on to the next slide. So here's what we did. I worked with Carl on a quick one-sheeter infographic to outline some of the things that are impacting the program and the potential impacts that families and communities could face. And I know it's kind of small, so if someone would like to see this later on, it could be made available to you. And so we talked about the impact of the commercial impact. So let's say, like I said, the kid gets a job, they're going to have a hard time getting to the job because they don't have reliable transportation. In that area, and in most rural areas of North Carolina, it's almost required that you have your driver's license in order to be able to support yourself. And as we're seeing more and more, some of these young folks are helping to financially support their families, right? So the impact on the commerce is kids will have to wait longer to get their license. So if you can't walk to your job, you're not likely to have a job. And then it also affects them recreationally, which could lead to negative social emotional impacts there. And then businesses in the area that rely on these young, not so young unskilled workers or cheaper labor don't have access to that. And then so the sources that we use to get this information out, and I apologize if I'm speaking quickly, we used our monthly newsletter, and the audience is roughly 800 units across the state of North Carolina. We also use our social media platforms, and coming up this year, I'm the 2024-2025 advocacy co-chair and federal legislative chair, and we have this awesome tool, advocacy tool called Voter Voice, where we can put together infographics and materials that will go directly to our membership to help point out the things that are our legislative focus, right? Our advocacy focuses. And we can also create materials that can be distributed to our local units, and they can use and tweak them as they need in their local areas. Also related, but not listed here, is I also sit on the public education legislative action team for League of Women Voters NC. And so this infographic was also distributed there and across the state to the 15 chapters across the state of North Carolina. And I do know that for one chapter, the League of Women Voters in the Piedmont Triad, they're going to begin a social media focused campaign starting in September, and the driver ed funding issue is going to be one of their main focus areas. Next slide. And that's it. Like I said, this was a very brief update, but are there any questions or comments?
Has
Has North Carolina PTA, I mean, is that infographic is something that's been sent out just digitally, or is it something that you guys have printed
It's been,
and sent out?
it's been sent out digitally, but it could be printed if needed.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
To follow on Mr. Tanner's question, who does it go to? Who's your distribution list?
So it goes to all of our members, our paid members in our database. So anyone who is a member of a local PTA unit would receive this email or this information through email.
Approximately how many members do you have statewide?
Oh, around, I think the last count was around 79,000.
Carl, can I say something real quick? It's Chad here.
Yeah.
I'll even start my camera. So first off, that was wonderfully presented. Carl and I talk quite a bit, or Mr. Logan, sorry, and I talk quite a bit. I think it's really important that presentation you just gave, goes to people who are, actively listening. And I use a great example because not only do I run a driver's ed program, but I think about it as a father of someone who just took driver's ed a year ago. And because she got into driver's ed, is now able to take classes at Alamance Community College. And if she wasn't able to get into driver's ed, she would have not been able to go take these college courses for free. I think it's really important that we keep kind of focusing on how important this program is. Because as Carl said earlier, some counties are, understaffed and so forth. And it's one thing if, as a teacher of 20 years, if you can't get a teacher in that classroom, which unfortunately is occurring all over the country, you could possibly put those kids in an online class, NCVPS or something like that. But if kids are not able to take driver's ed, there's really no alternate. I mean, so I just kind of want to, pinpoint. Thank you for bringing those points out because I don't think many people understand how important this program is when it comes to the people who are funding or in charge of our funds. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
To follow up on one other question there, Ms. Baker, we had a conversation regarding rural communities that you mentioned, and I received from Division Motor Vehicles a list of all the driving schools in the state of North Carolina and where they're located. And we found that there are 56 counties in the state of North Carolina that currently do not have a commercial driving school, which means that if the public school program were to go away, to cease operations, there would be 56 counties, majority rural counties of students that would not have access to driver education. That would impact the local economies and commerce like you mentioned. And my experience with working with the state of Georgia for some years, when I was working with a commercial provider, once they changed a law that allowed to private school driver education again, or required driver education down there, they had an increase of teachers to 800%. And the number of new school applications were 400%. And it swamped their governing body or the group that was to oversee that commercial driving. So you can see that how that would impact going forward. Thank you for that, Ms. Baker. And if you please hang around for, I think, probably some follow-up conversations. But to continue moving forward, to segue into our next two presenters, is that traffic safety education remains a crucial component, as you can tell by the conversation already, of student development and public safety. And since its removal from the standard course of study 30 years ago, districts have adopted various administrative strategies to continue providing quality programs. So the next two presenters will explore two of the three primary strategies, which each with its own set of advantages and disadvantages. So with that, Mr. Our Vice Chair, Mr. Chad Aharon, with Alamance Burlington Schools. He's a coordinator for driver education there, and he is also part-time. Well, actually, I guess you're more part-time driver education coordinator and full-time human resources, Chad.
Human resources, transportation, whatever they want to kind of put on me.
So you're wearing a lot of hats, and you're also the vice chair of the DEAC. So take it away.
Well, first off, like I always say, I want to thank Mr. Logan for everything he does. I cannot tell you enough how he is a very modest person, and he really is running everything single-handedly. And like I said, this program is extremely important. And I just don't say that because obviously, part of my salary is driver's ed, but everything I do, including as a teacher for 20 years, was always looked upon as a parent first, then an educator. So I want to thank you, and hopefully you will get a staff back eventually. So real quickly, I've been doing driver's ed actually since 2004 when I was in Durham Public Schools. I was teaching social studies and also driving and teaching the classes. Here in Alamance County, we roughly have 2,500 students, ninth graders, that we are looking to drive every single year. We offer classes mostly in person, but we've actually started offering a couple of virtual classes and weekend courses as well for our student athletes. So we are trying to be as accessible as we can. And it goes back to Ms. Baker's presentation. This is something that every student needs to be able to take. And the fact that we have people that want to teach driver's ed, and unfortunately because of funding and resources, can't become certified to teach driver's ed, that's only hurting our students. It's hurting our students, it's hurting their family, it's hurting our economy, because most students, when they get their driver's license, usually get jobs and so forth. So I just kind of want to, pinpoint all the aspects that are going on that, it seems like many times for this program, if you don't mind going to the next slide, with this program, a lot of us are kind of hanging on a little thread, and I know Carl does a great job advocating for us. All right. So as I said before, I've taught for years. I came to Alamance Burlington Schools, started kind of working with the driver's ed program here, and every year we keep growing as a school. We keep growing and growing, and we try to drive more students. I don't feel like the point of this presentation is just to talk about Alamance schools, obviously, or the in-house programs, because the in-house programs, along with our partners, as Carl said, suffer with the same experiences and so forth. And I've talked to people in Orange County and Durham County. I've talked to people in Guilford County that are not in-house. And it seems like collectively we all kind of struggle with the same kind of things. If you can go to the next one, if you don't mind. So, and by the way, this is not a knock towards anyone like the DMV or anything like that, because I think the DMV is just amazing. And I can tell you right now, they are so short-staffed. Part of my job is also to deal with CDLs and bus drivers and so forth, and DOT physicals. And I can tell you real quickly that we had our DMV rep was actually covering at one point 3 counties, our county, Randolph County, and I can't remember the other county. So totally understaffed, short-staffed. But one of the things that we really pushed here in Alamance County was the STEP program. That was, kind of the brainchild of Carl and Reggie Flight and all the other people who were involved in the program. I personally went through the program, even though I do have even though I've been doing driver's ed for years. I actually added the 096 to my license along with 2 other teachers here in Alamance. And then we also were able to, that was like the master program, I think it was a different program. And then I was also able to hire 4 more teachers through the STEP program. And I can't tell you how good that program is. I mean, it's one thing to take the 2-week course, which I did back in 2004 with the DMV, but the STEP program is on a different level. And that's not to knock the DMV program, it's just a lot longer. Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 134 hours altogether. Is that how long it is, program?
134 hours.
Yeah, so
that's what it's geared for. But Sometimes it was, actually, it's a lot more than that because the teachers themselves put in time in between those hours.
Correct. And by the way, I'm while I speak, I'm looking at the chat. So if anyone wants me to, if there's any questions I need to answer, any confusion, just let me know. So the STEP program was great. Like I said, going through it myself was awesome, and then I can see with my future drivers and instructors were going through. But the greatest part about the program was the actual, I would say the student teaching, I guess you want to call it, or the practicum. The fact that the teachers had to team teach with me and then had to actually get in the car with me for 24 hours. And we can kind of start from the ground up. And it just worked out really well. It was free for the teacher. Well, I say free for them, but obviously it does cost money for the state. And when that program was dissolved, and again, I don't want to get political. Us Yankees sometimes get political. But when it was dissolved, it really seems like a lot of people lost the opportunity to go through a really good program. And it seemed like it was a last minute thing. I can't speak for Carl. I don't want to speak for Carl, but it seemed to me I was kind of blindsided in a way, considering the fact that there was numerous people signed up to take the next course. I don't know what happened to the people actually in the course. Carl could kind of talk about that later if he wanted to. And then the DMV classes, and again, not a knock on the DMV. I'm here in Burlington. Greensboro is right down the road from us. A couple of months ago, we had a couple of people interested in taking the course at the DMV, and I emailed the person in charge, Wendy House, and I think there was like 8 spots left, and none of my people were able to get in. So yet again, we are very fortunate here in Alamance County. We do have a good amount of people. Last year, we drove actually 81% of our students and taught 83%. But I will tell you right now, I can imagine down the road, we will have a couple of people retire. We will have people move forward onto other careers. And I'm hoping that the STEP program will be back in action to kind of recruit more people, because I've got at least 3 or 4 more people that would be interested in joining the driver's ed program here in Alamance. If you can go to the next one, please. There we go. Okay, yours looks a little different than mine. Okay, so administrative cost. As we know, things go up. Prices go up, inflation, yada yada. We'll talk about that in the next slide a little. I don't want to use the number that Carl threw out. I think he threw out $335 per student. I don't know if that was from last year. The number that I was using, Carl, was Mr. Logan, Carl, sorry, $208. So last year here, alone in Alamance, we actually ended up driving 83 homeschoolers. So according to my calculation, if you have 83 homeschoolers at roughly $208, that's $17,264 that we did not get funded for those students. I know Mr. Logan and I keep going back and forth about how to get those kids registered. Maybe we do something like the year before. And kind of they have to sign up early so we can kind of throw that to the state. But until something happens, like I said, that is the loss of money that we are not getting. Now, when it comes to students with special needs, Alamance does pay for students with special needs. Last year, we ended up paying roughly $6,000 for 2 students to take special services with driver rehabilitation out in McLeansville. One student had a serious eye issue and had to drive with them using special glasses, and another student unfortunately was not able to use her legs. So the school was able to provide, or the company was able to provide a car that had, a gas and a brake on the steering wheel and so forth. So that's $6,000 right there. Like I said before, that's part of the budget that we use coming out of driver's ed. You go to the next one.
Chad, before you move further, regarding the cost per student that I provided you, the actual cost per student that you started the year out with with the planning budget was $208.64. But the actual costs, when you took the number of students that you served by the amount of money that was expended, that average cost went up to $335. So if you look at those, and I want to make sure that everyone who's listening, if they're a providing partner or a local school administrator, understand that your actual cost of the program, actual cost per student, is actually much higher than the 208. That's what I need for everybody to understand. But the actual amount of money that's the kind of the theoretical number is 208.64. That's
Yeah.
if you taught all the students. So if you did teach all the students and you spent $335 per student, obviously you would need a lot more money locally than you're getting. That's my point. Okay. So sorry if I created any kind of confusion there.
No, I was doing a little math actually while you were talking. So now I see it's 27,805 versus 17,264. If you can go to the next slide, please. So, one of the things that, we see in regards to driver's ed, versus anything else is that, we try to, salaries are competitive. I can't remember who sent it out a while ago, but there was someone recently in the in-house system that sent out an email or a Google form to all of the driver's ed coordinators about how much they pay, in class versus, behind the wheel versus classroom, this and that. And as prices of salaries go up, many people I do hear around in Orange County, Durham, even here in Alamance, I did lose one person to a job that was paying more. I could tell you because I still get behind the wheel, this job is getting more and more, I'll say, tougher, and I will say more dangerous. And that's not to knock on our students who are driving. I can tell you real quickly that a couple of months ago, I was actually helping out and driving a student driving down Church Street. Not that most people know where Church Street is. And we were hit by a woman who was texting and driving, and it totaled the car, airbags deployed. Luckily, thank God, everyone was okay. So like I say, after that happened, we got right back on the horse, and the next day we were driving again, my two students. But it makes you think, how no matter how much you get paid, the fact that it's a dangerous job, kind of going back to that question earlier that someone asked, the kids are there to drive. They are very eager to drive. But I will say this, and yet again, I'm going to put my parent hat on. I've been doing this since 2004. In 2004, as the kids say, they couldn't wait to whip it. It's becoming very different nowadays. I think the desire to drive for a lot of kids is not there until they actually get behind the wheel with us and drive with us and realize it's not that bad. If you use the infamous I word, interstate, that makes them all nervous until they get on the interstate and they look over and say, wow, that was really fun. And that was a lot easier than we thought it would be. And again, I think moving forward, the more availability we have of driver's ed teachers, the more, if we get rid of the backlog, I know some counties definitely have a backlog, and that's not their fault. That is not their fault whatsoever. That's obviously, same thing could be said about teachers in schools. There's a few, my wife right now is in Durham. They're starting their work days right now, and they're around 7, 8 teachers short. That's a pretty good school. So the competition is there. I had someone one time tell me, I'm getting paid okay money for these kids to drive, but I could be delivering packages for more money with Amazon. So, that's just food for thought when I think about, how much money goes into the budget and how we have to kind of think about the salaries we pay. I can tell you alone, since I've been here 3 years, our repair bills have gone through the roof. When I first came here, our oil change and tire rotation used to be around, I'd say maybe $48 to $50. Now we're looking at $100. Now you're probably saying, all right, well, 50%, increase, oil change. But when you're driving as many students as we are, roughly 2,500 students, we're getting oil changes. Some of my instructors are getting oil changes almost once a month. So yet again, that kind of adds up quite a bit. So, and Mr. Logan already talked about the funding. As far as our wish list, I think the funding is extremely important. I really think we need to talk about, increasing funding. I know we charge, obviously. I can't stand the fact that we do charge. I wish we were going back to 2008 or 2012. I can't remember what year it was when we were fully funded. As far as policies, Mr. Logan's doing a great job with in-house and out-of-house LEAs in regards to changing policy. I really think we need to bring that STEP program back. I think that's one of the most important things. That's kind of my spiel. I mean, I'm trying to think if I left anything out. Mr. Logan, is there anything you want me to kind of, go over that I missed?
So to summarize your wish list there, would you say that funding, teachers, and what else would it be?
I would also think for your sake, getting administrative staff back to you would help out tremendously. I mean, we have a program here in North Carolina that is by far one of the best programs in any state. We've got kids from Michigan. I'm teaching a kid right now from Kansas. In Kansas, they don't even there's no graduated license program. In Kansas, they just go for their permit and then they go for the license. So the girl I'm teaching right now is very upset with me that she has to actually take driver's ed for 30 hours. So it's a great program we have here. And if we want to be, one of the best states, I mean, the last 3 years, now I'll give it to Virginia. Virginia did beat us this year and be number one in business. But I think the previous 2 years, North Carolina was number one in business by CNBC. So, I mean, why not strive to be number one in driver's ed across the country?
Thanks, Chad. Do you have anything else any questions for Chad? There will be a follow-up discussion totally when you combine all three of these again. And as we continue moving forward, thanks again for that. The next presenter represents a service provider partner with the district. I'm going to stop using the word contractor. Contractor, like I said, it just has a connotation to me, just doesn't fit. So, but you're a service provider, Mr. Eddie Jordan, who's been around the driver education community for a long, long time. And reviewing some of your slides, I see that you've got your bio and information on there. It gives your background, but Eddie has also been a friend of mine for a long time for this in the driver education community, and thank you for being part of the committee. And I appreciate your presentation here today.
Sure. Do you want me to do the slide or?
Yeah,
I said,
by all means.
that way I moved that one the other way, left the other way. Oh, there we go. Good morning. As Carl said, I've been in this business a long time, but today I'm going to discuss the role and impact of commercial driving schools in North Carolina's driver education program. And my aims are to highlight the contributions, the challenges, and potential opportunities for collaboration between public driver education programs and commercial driving schools. I will be speaking on behalf of myself and my company's perspectives. I'm not representing any other commercial driving schools with the exception of the way we are regulated with the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicle and some of how we go into contracting with the public school systems. All right, you said click. I wanted to put a little bit about myself on screen because I'll hit it. There it goes. One of the things back in the early 90s, is it gonna? Okay, point at that laptop. That one. Okay, got it. Now we'll get there. Myself, one of the stigmas back in the early 90s when commercial driving schools started contracting with public school systems was that there's not really, we don't have educators are not going to be training our students how to drive anymore. And I want to make it just to show myself, I'm a former educator. I went to East Carolina in secondary education. I went to Campbell University and got my master's in administrative education. I look up on the screen, Mr. Tony Moore, he's a commercial driving school owner, and he also is a former educator. My sister, Lorraine Jordan, is a former driver educator. So we are educators, and I want that to be stated. I got my certification in driver education back in 1992 at the old DMV office in Durham, and I think it's still there. And then I became a driver education instructor trainer in 2006. I've been in this business, and Carl said it, 30 years. And when I was putting this together, I'm like, well, I have been in it a long time, and my family's been in it a lot longer. And I'm a member of the North Carolina Driving Traffic Safety Education Association, as well as the American Driver Traffic Safety Education, which Carl just alluded to earlier. Is that right? There we go. A little bit about my company. I started in 2008. I currently, we train about 6,500 students annually in driver education throughout North Carolina. Listed are the school systems that we work with. There you can read those. I got my foot in the door through my sister's company though. Prior to 2008, I worked with Jordan Driving School in Raleigh and Charlotte, and her driving school is one of the larger driving schools in the United States. She trains about 25,000 students annually. And I took her standards, and our commitment is to uphold the highest quality standards established by Jordan Driving School, and the commitment shall enable Jordan Driving School of Carolinas to effectively serve the driver education needs of the public schools in North Carolina. And student welfare are priorities of my company. Now, I listed my school systems that I work with up there, and working with them, one of the things is it's a little different with every one of them. We try to do the same, but our contracts are designed differently. The student bodies obviously are differently. You can see I go all the way from Bladen County in the southern part of the state up to Person County in the north central part of the state. So, all right, got it. I'm learning this thing. A little bit here about, I feel like our success is all about professionalism and quality. I want to put a good product out for our families that we work with in driver education. I look for Department of Public Instruction certified driver education instructors first. I have 2 on staff currently. Can't get them anymore. There is no way to get, since the STEP program has been eliminated, there is no way to get an 096 on your teaching certification. So the next phase, I look for certified teachers who complete the 80-hour course, DMV course, to emphasize. And professionalism for like non-certified teachers. A lot of times I look for people who have been in the transportation background or some form work with education systems. Okay, I have currently right now around 60 instructors, and we have about 55 vehicles in our fleet. And the majority of my classroom instructors are SDPI certified teachers. And I require the instructors be members of one of the 2 associations. Carl just alluded to the ADSIA, or they have to either be a member of that or a member of the North Carolina Association. Okay. All right, here we go. Now a little bit of, come on. All right, so we know all the rules. We're mandated 30 hours of classroom, 6 hours of driving. A little bit of background, the history, in 1992 is when the change was enacted that the driver education program was taken out of the public school traditional day and was put into a program that was not offered during the school day. And it was divided into 2 programs, as Chad alluded to, talking about the in-house programs. And I'm following what we discussed in commercial driving school programs. Partnering. Charles, you were partnering. And so it is available through the public schools. And there are, though, I put this up here, additional services by commercial driving schools. You can opt out as a family. If you don't want to go through the public driver education, you can pay a commercial driving school to get your driver education certification. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit.
And while you're waiting for that to flip, can you give a kind of quick idea what the cost or the market cost is for?
If I can get through about 3 slides, you're going to speak.
All right.
And
hold my question.
This is probably just something I wanted to put up here. We are, like as I said, we're regulated by DMV, our commercial driving schools. You want to become a driver ed instructor, there are the specs as to how to become one. Basically, what that tells you, as long as you meet all those criteria there, you have to take an 80-hour course and then get licensed through a commercial driving school in North Carolina. It also tells you how to become an instructor trainer through DMV. Next slide is, you want to open up a driving school. There it is. There's how you do it. And it tells you how to go through the process. Basically, I say that you have a car, you have an office with a lease on it, with a classroom, $80 check, meet all those criteria, you can open a driving school up in North Carolina through the Department of Motor Vehicle. Okay, commercial driving schools play a critical role in ensuring that all students, regardless of, what's wrong? I think go to the slide. Regardless of enrollment, have access to driver education. They offer opportunities for public school students, charter school students, homeschool students, private school students to complete the requirements. In the areas where public driver education may not be readily available, particularly in rural regions, commercial driving schools fill the gap by providing essential services to local communities. As was talked about earlier, there are a very limited amount of driving schools in certain parts of the state, especially the northeastern part of the state and the western part of the state. There are very few commercial driving schools. Okay, I talked a little bit about the quality of our instructors, but the quality of instruction in commercial driving schools are licensed, as I said, through the Department of Motor Vehicle. We do have criteria. We have to meet certain qualifications that adhere to state standards. Regular audits and inspections are conducted to maintain the quality of education provided at our schools. Many instructors in commercial driving schools have years of experience. I have on my staff two instructors that have 45 plus years teaching driver ed in North Carolina. So we've got some people that are good at what they do and enjoy what they do. And it brings all kinds of backgrounds. Public safety people are good in it. We hire a lot of retired public safety professional drivers, and it brings a real world perspective to their teaching in the car and in the classroom. I want to tell you a little bit when our driving schools, DMV, like I said, I want to go into a little bit of our regulation. Annually, we get an office inspection. We get all of our vehicles, get an additional inspection, not just the regular state inspection. We get a DMV inspection on our vehicles annually. Biannually, our instructors renew their license every 2 years, and then every 2 years, and then also the driving school. But I want to say a little bit about our renewal credits. You have to receive to maintain your license as a driver education instructor. You are required to get 64 hours of continuing education every 4 years, 16 a year, but 4 of those hours of the 16 for every year that you work with a driving school counts towards your 16 hours. So in essence, you have to go outside of your work to get 48 hours of renewal credits. As Carl just said, go to the ATSIA conference, and what I tell them, to get 20 hours or just going to that. And that is why I make my instructors join those associations. It is simple, good educational learning, and you can pick up your renewal credits every year.
Quick question: do you pay for their attendance at these?
I do. I will say my school systems, some of them help with paying for them to go to the conferences and to get their continuing education. So, and could use more, but I feel the gaps with what we do. Yes. And I mentioned I like to hire education personnel. I love retired education personnel. I love hiring former police officers, former fire and rescue, former bus drivers, anything in the transportation field. A DMV, if you hire a former DMV person, if they get a break in a driver ed car, that's almost like they won the lottery, because they've been going on road tests with people without a break for all these years. So for them, they're excited. What else have we got? Let's see. I wanted to go into a few things about expense. This thing is slow, guys. All right. There we go. Collaboration with public schools. We partner with public school districts to deliver educational services, either by providing supplemental behind the wheel training, or the big one, through formal agreements to handle instruction entirely. These partnerships can help alleviate resource constraints in the public school systems, especially in districts facing budget or staffing challenges. And best practices, commercial driving schools, we are a valuable resource for public driver education programs. And we have, we offer, like I said, I offer a lot of professional development. We do a lot with the school systems. I will say not as much so since 2020, but used to be, I could walk in any one of my schools, central offices, and they know me because I am a part of the school system. And I try to develop that relationship with my principals, my administrators at the central office. And like I said, it has not been as strong as prior to 2020, 2021, obviously, but we're working back into that. And it's really, like I said, they know me when I come in the door, good or bad. I'm there for them. And the bigger thing, next slide, is where we go into. I want to talk about when I work with the school systems, but also with the community itself. First, I'll go down to the bottom part of the slide. The contributions for driving schools. We create jobs, local jobs. We create support, but we have ancillary businesses. I try to get my vehicles from the school systems that I work with. I use all the maintenance services in the areas. So anything we can do, we try to do local when we contract with a school system. But I want to go up to affordability. Now, if you go to take driver education and you opt out of taking it through the public school system, you're going to pay, and this is just rough numbers, anywhere from at the lowest $400 to it has gotten as high in certain parts of the state, $800 plus to take driver ed and through a commercial driving school.
And nationally, it's close to 1,000.
And we are low versus the national average. It is very high. It's going up every year. The fee through the public school system, though, can range from $0. There are school systems that do not charge the fee to $65, the $65 fee. And that started in, I think Chad mentioned this, it was somewhere around 2010, 2011 that they started with a $45 fee, and then they increased it to $65 because they didn't have, 45 wasn't meeting the budget needs. So that's a big thing. And the communities in North Carolina, we are fully funded technically in driver ed. We do have a small fee, but versus I'm a member of a lot of national associations, as Carl talked about. We attend a lot of meetings. When we tell them what we're providing in driver education, they're impressed with our program. And so I'm like Chad. I wish we didn't charge anything, but it is a low fee. Okay, I wanted to show a few. Let's go back to this. A few things of what I'm dealing with. I am a businessman. I was a person, but I was a trained educator, and I've learned to be a business person. And this is what's happening. I put this chart up here. Automobiles. I own my whole fleet of vehicles. And if you go back on the chart in front of you, we're only looking at since 2000. If you look, it's almost a straight line. The cost of maintaining and operating a vehicle from 2000 almost to 2019 didn't really change a lot. There wasn't a lot of variance. But look at what's happened since 2019 and then 2020. That arrow goes straight up. It almost has, I mean, we're getting into ballpark figures of things are doubling what it costs to maintain a vehicle. I can just tell you, these are from the Bureau of Transportation Statistics, just a battery in a car is double what it was 4 years ago. Simple oil changes. An oil change used to could go to Jiffy Lube and get a $39 oil change. That is no more. It is $89, $100 plus. That's just one of the things that we're dealing with. The next one is the.
Before you change from that, I don't want to mess up your flow here, and tell me if I am. But regarding vehicles, you said that you own your own fleet. Do you provide those vehicles to those schools, districts that you are partnering with?
I provide everything vehicle related.
Is that required of your contract to provide a vehicle?
My contracts, all all 8 that I have, I provide 100% of the vehicle fleet.
So that's a massive expense.
It is.
Massive expense that cuts into the education or the amount that you have for other administrative
Yes.
and teacher salaries.
And the number, like I said, it was level out pretty good, but what has changed since 2020 is amazing, the cost expense. And it is really, when you're budgeting, it's hard to budget or make, and that's where, yeah, more funding would definitely help. But the one, I don't like to talk on gas a lot, but this is a gas chart from Gas Buddies since 2014, or the last 10 years. If you look at this, gas really, and I'm not one that says give us more funding for fuel, because fuel is funny. You never really know what it's going to be. It just depends on the day of the week, honestly, how fuel regulates. But the reason I put this up here, of course, it spiked in 2021 in the middle of the pandemic. It did go down. But if you look to the chart on the right-hand side, it didn't go back down to the levels it was the previous 6 to 7 years. You're still looking at a pretty regular average increase of 40 to 45 cent increase in fuel. And I think this is where we are. So that is another thing that we do deal with. And then the bigger issue is, and Chad was talking about this in his presentation, labor expense. Pretty much our wages were kind of the same all the way. This chart goes way back. It goes to 2008. If you look around, these are nominal wages, and it goes pretty much flatline until prior to the pandemic. And at the pandemic level, you see what happens. It goes up. Well, guess what? I was having a struggle hiring people at that time. So we have to hire at what the nominal wage is at the time. It has regulated some going down, but it hasn't gone down either. And it's kind of like, once you get to that pay rate, you're not going to take it away. And it is an expense. So the bigger two for me are automobile expense, and definitely wages are difficult.
But does your contract still, let's see here, so your contract requires you to provide your own fuel?
Yes, I provide everything vehicle related.
So has that amount changed since you started business? Has it changed, or is it still about the same that the district is providing you?
District to district, it has changed. Some have, it's been better in some than others, but yes, my relationship, yes, has been more provided.
So in essence, that should be an expense or an expectation that the district should pay for the fuel and not be the variable left on the partner.
Yeah, and that's where I was saying, I don't want to say fuel is up and down, because you never know what the fuel price is going to be.
True.
But I do say that is just showing the trend, and is where we're headed with everything. That's why I threw that up there. One of the things, training is an issue, as we've talked about. Now, I have 4 of us on staff are trainers. We train the majority of our own instructors through DMV. So we are trainers for DMV. As a matter of fact, we are finally done with 7 we have been working with all summer. That is the 80-hour course that DMV is required to become an instructor. We go way more than 80 hours. We get the 80-hour course in, then we have to go back to DMV, and they administer our written test and our road test. And then we come back, and then we start doing mentorship and training our instructors. DMV is doing all they can to train instructors. They do not have the staff. And if Terry was here, I would say that I know they're doing as many as they can. But this is the big emphasis that this committee needs to somehow get back to the legislature. There is not the ability to train instructors, and this is going to be a big, big problem, I say, within the next 2 to 3 years if something does not change.
And how do you see that contributed to what I see as a perception of a massive backlog?
It's going to be, there's no way, because especially not speaking from us, I can maintain a staff doing my training. I'm very fortunate that we're able to do that. I don't know how Alamance County Schools is going to hire, or I won't use Alamance, I'll use Cumberland County Schools or some of the larger in-house programs, Durham County Schools. I don't know how they're going to maintain a staff, because you can't just put an ad out, say we're hiring driver education teachers, because they are not available that are certified. Of course, people will come and we can hire them and train. That is if we don't do anything else, we have got to find a way to staff these school systems. And back to the wages thing, I do the best I can. I don't mind telling anybody. Chad said something about losing instructors. It happens to us all the time. Very common. I try to pay as close to a living wage as I can. I won't get into all the details. Not a minimum wage, a living wage. Basically it's somewhere from $18 to $21, somewhere in there. That's a living wage. But we do lose instructors to other commercial driving schools that will come and offer more. And after we go through the work, and I can offer an employee volume, they can offer them a higher wage. I don't know if that makes sense, but I can guarantee them a lot of work.
And it almost seems to be a good retention strategy, especially for qualified teachers in rural districts whose roots are in those rural districts, to continue to maintain that support.
Most of the time, that's what we have, especially like I said, if you go back to the retired educators, that is a great second career for them after they leave the system.
So you identified 2 areas in the state that were depleted, I guess.
Yes.
Just not available. So are you seeing any strategic way or any plan to address those 2 areas, short of just going in and saying, in the police department, for example, anybody want to retire? Come work for me.
Well, we've done everything we could, and Devin's on the committee. Devin knows we go through a lot of recruitment with all the different school systems, and we all have our own ways, but the bottom line is you can hire people. And another problem with the training, it is hard the DMV course is a cut and dry 80-hour course that goes 2 weeks long. Well, I trained for 80 hours, but we extend it over like a 2-month period. It's hard to keep.
Your program is, or actually the STEP program model program that you have.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, we work, and I know why DMV does the 2-week program. That works best for what they have with their staff. For us, we try to work for extended time.
And just for a quick note here, as you're talking about that, is that actually I got this from your sister. She told me that it costs her, as she can train her own people as well, $1,000 to $1,500 per teacher, whereas DPI was training those using administrative funds at no cost to you.
Yeah, it's costing. That's a good number she's shared with you, and plus it takes away. I do a lot of it, but majority of my director Todd, he does the bulk of the training, and it takes away from him being a part of the business. Basically, I pull him away. Most of the summer, he was pulled away and was training instructors.
And as any teacher would know, that just teaching that class time is not the majority of the time. It's actually preparation for teaching the class.
It is.
It goes into it.
It is. Okay. And you can't see these numbers, but what I wanted to show is the funding. Obviously, you can look it up on the DPL website, but our funding stayed the same almost from 2011 to 2021, and then we did have the last few years had some increases. But my thing is the growth in this state, the population has gone up versus and with the money, and it just really hasn't matched up. And I am in business to make a profit, and we're still working off the same numbers. But it's I've learned over the year, when you're working off the same dollar figures, it's really hard. And that's why I want to show you those graphs where the last 3 years have been. And anyway, it is challenging, but I don't know. I love what I do, and I believe in what we do in teaching driver education.
That program had 4 cohorts per year. Is that correct?
We actually only had 2, and we could teach, or we could certify 75 new teachers per cohort.
Okay.
And we were about to expand that to the summer. So we had condensed the program. Actually, we moved the piece out of the program. And Cindy, tell me if I'm wrong here, but moved the piece out to squeeze it in the summer process.
Mhm.
But it was a partnership between the school districts
Mhm.
and DPI,
Mhm.
because that practicum piece, the students, the teachers did their practicum at the local level through a trained mentor that went through the DPI program. So it was quite involved, and the teachers that went through that, even the certified teachers or the currently professional teachers, they all they didn't like going into it because it was taking too long. But when they came out of it, they realized that they had learned so much, and it was a nice review of teacher education practices. So I'm sorry for getting back on that. That was
That's fine.
that was
Can you go to the
amazing.
next? I could, oh, something like that. I can't get it to go to the next slide, but I was going to, in conclusion, basically, we are a part of the driver education ecosystem. I think we expand access, we provide flexibility, uh, but provide recommendations. I think we need to explore opportunities for future collaboration between commercial schools and public schools. The reason I say there needs to be more collaboration, we have the instructors. We do have them, and I don't know what that is, but we need to consider initiatives to support families accessing driver ed through the public schools. I don't like that number when you have a program that is 100% funded and you only have 75% of your population taking driver ed. To me, that is I don't know. I think every kid, regardless of what their situation is, should take driver education. And that is a number that I don't like to hear any year when I hear how low the percentage is. And I know that part of that number is, I would say 10 to 15% have now opted out of going through the public school system and are paying to take it. I'm a commercial driving school, so I know how it is. You can make money off of it, and that if you're not working with the public schools. And I would like to see the number though go up from 75% to say 85%. I have a couple school systems, I will say, won't call them out. We're about 95% participation. I have 95 to 100% participation. And Carl sees, they're on the reports we turn in. You can look at our reports and see.
Just a few comments here to follow up, and then I guess this kind of segues into the next session. It seems like I've taken over here. I'm sorry, Dr. Lane.
You're quite okay.
Some of the comments that you made during your presentation, thank you for that, because it's very detailed. I know a lot about driver education, but I don't know that. I don't know what you know.
And I'll say we're very fortunate that with newest member, Mr. Tony Moore, he can answer more questions than I can. He's been doing it for a long time, and along with my sister, Mr. Leroy Ledford, there's a lot that have been in the business since the school system started contracting in 1992.
Just a few quick comments, and then I'll let you, Mr. Moore is on. You mentioned commercial schools come into the public schools. The only requirement that I see, the only requirement that you be a DMV certified commercial school is just that. That's what it says in the statute. But what you do is you bring all of those qualities of education with you. That's what that means to me. So when I look at you as a provider partner, is that I look at the district. The district that you represent is, and you are interchangeable. So there's no difference. Okay, there's no difference. So when I say district, I'm actually talking about if the district partners, and I'm talking about that partner as well. I don't think that's been understood widespread across the state over the last few years, which has led to some issues that seems like there is us and them. It is us being a commercial school and them being the in-house program. To me, there's no difference. There's no difference. We're on the same. So that's what the statute 20-130, 230. I think that's correct. Maybe 234. 234. As far as vehicles are concerned, Again, there are inherent advantages and disadvantages to having a partner. The one is that the partner sometimes can afford to bring bring vehicles, and you can move those vehicles across school districts to be used. Such as I'll use Terrell County. Terrell County gets less than $50,000 a year. They can't buy a vehicle and have a teacher. Can't do that. Can't do that. You, the contractor, partner, I slipped myself, didn't I? You, the partner, can provide that. In policy, currently, it allows districts to partner with other districts to provide driver education programs. That's already there. So what you're doing is providing that piece of the policy. So that's what I want everybody to understand. The next piece about teacher requirements, as far as DMV and DPI, like I said before, the program, the DPI program, was designed based on the program that I know that you and your sister and Mr. Moore, I knew that what they were doing, and so that's how our program came about. A potential solution to teacher shortages is that we do have some districts, believe it or not, with a pool of teachers waiting to go to work. If our district, if our state still had access to the digitized program that we created, that means there's one curriculum that's being taught across all agencies, all districts. Those teachers could be shared. I have a teacher in Manteo who's waiting to go teach. I have a shortage in Cherokee County, Murphy, North Carolina, where that teacher could actually teach classroom remotely through the digitized program. Could do that. Unfortunately, we lost access to that. But that is a potential possibility of going down the road. So I do happen to know where there's 10 teachers that are waiting to go to work in one county, in one district. So just as we segue.
Okay.
You want to introduce Senator Moore?
Yeah. So thank you, Ms. Baker, Mr. Arone, and Mr. Jordan for your presentations. We are always interested in many of you that come from different entities that could spread your wealth and knowledge as these individuals did tonight or today, so that we can learn more about the programs. And there are oftentimes many questions that come up that offspring to that, and that maybe some of us have some thoughts and ideas, and certainly in my world, some recruiting opportunities, I think, for many of those schools that are looking for that. And I think it's a disappointing state when you say that there are teachers sitting in the wings waiting to teach. It's definitely, we want to get people out there that have an opportunity to work.
Well, we're in the technology age, so you do have districts. Those were kind of like the invisible borders, but now those districts can share teachers.
Yeah.
That's what the partner does. The partner shares teachers across those borders.
Well, and I think clearly in the last 4 years, we've all seen changes and different dynamics, and technology is clearly the move toward something as we go forward. So I think there's a lot of opportunities out there, and we just need to see how we can explore those and make them work for all of us. So if anybody has any ideas that are on the committee that you'd like to present, like was done here today, please let us know. Let me bring up any old business. Chad, I think you had some old business with the focus groups.
Actually, I have to admit that the summer, in encouraging you all to make that decision to have this focus group get together was, I guess, a little overzealous on my part, is that there was so many things going on this summer that I did not have a chance to create administration to make that happen. So, but going forward, and it's now at a very, very critical time because the long session is getting ready to start, is that this group needs to get together and meet. And now that we've heard from special populations and the administrative side of driver education and how that impacts our rural school or our rural parents out there with Ms. Baker's presentation, it's obvious that we need to do something very quickly and to get this on the book. So between, I'm not going to say again because I don't want to make a mistake again, but we need to continue this idea of the focus group and presenting these program concerns. There are different moving parts to that. There's obviously the funding allotment piece that needs to be discussed that's been brought up today. So administrative, the educational piece, and teacher certification, obviously. There is an ongoing collaboration between DMV and DPI. DMV and DPI, here's a testimonial. It could not be better than it ever has been. The relationship that DPI has with DMV, we are constantly working on things. In fact, during this meeting, I got a message from Mr. Fink, who's with DMV, who's telling me about a new program that's going to be required by statute to be taught in the classrooms, and how they've already, I guess, made some steps toward getting that done. So anything, and parental involvement still remains the piece that's missing in this whole traffic safety education piece.
Okay.
So, but that needs to continue on. So if I could make the recommendation, while you have Senator Moore up there as a new member, you want to introduce him, let him
I will in a few minutes. So what do you want to do with this recommendation? Do you want to?
continue it.
Okay,
It's being
so
continued.
we'll continue this even with everything that you're,
Right.
it's on your
So,
plate now.
so things are getting ready to get more consolidated now that the summer is gone.
Okay.
Because I was traveling to the national conference and then some other personal things that were going on. And so now that we got that to
Okay.
organize, so
Okay.
sorry about that.
You've been a one-person section.
Mhm.
Keep that in perspective too.
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to focus with that.
Yeah, we
because
just need to
we
get
know.
everybody together
Yes.
and make a shopping list or wish list of what needs to be done and what needs to be taken to the state superintendent, to the state board of education, and then hopefully that would get on their list to go to the legislature.
So you heard it from Carl. We all have our marching orders on what we need to do and what our wish list needs to be in each one of these groups. And we will be back with the folks on each of those groups in the next couple of weeks. So we can get
yes,
started?
so we have a meeting in November 19th, I think it is. And that's that would be a target to have something ready, because I think things start moving toward the State Board of Education for the legislature in January.
We did have a sidebar conversation with our legal team about what that might look like to continue to have a mega discussion around the issues you've identified today, to give you an opportunity for all stakeholders and the public. This is an open environment to give that feedback. So we want to follow up with you with perhaps additional information of which we become aware.
And those focus groups would be somewhat of a subcommittee where committee members and the general public or the local
Could have
providers would have input. Yes.
And, we could do something similar to what we're doing right now, this week, community forums, and just get some feedback from those that are vested, interested people in these topics, in these areas.
And that's one thing I'd really like for everyone to know, the complete transparency of everything every decision that we make is vetted through the local stakeholders, not just me, not just this committee, but through everyone.
Exactly.
So no one has a need to go and state their own cases anywhere else. Like we're all speaking as one, that's less confusing to legislature.
Okay. So to keep timely, I want to circle back around and introduce Joshua Norris and Tony Moore. And if they could just take just a few seconds to give some overview of who they are, what their interest is in serving on this committee, to share with us a little bit of what you shared with us when we originally talked in the interview. And Joshua, you want to be first?
Actually, I got a message from his father. The school technology was not able to support this meeting.
I fixed it. I got it resolved.
Oh, did you?
Good.
I'll take it back and tell your dad quit texting me during the meeting.
Welcome. Go right ahead, sir.
So my name is Joshua Norris. I am a sophomore at Southwest High School in Belmont, North Carolina, and I just received my driver's license level 2 yesterday.
Very good.
Applause.
Yes, yes. Excellent. Excellent.
And your dad bought you a car, right?
Oh, you know he did.
Exactly what he's doing. Wow.
Joshua, what are some of the things that you would like to see accomplished while you're here as a member?
I'd like to see more engagement from kids, especially in school teaching, because I see these kids, they're just a little bored. They just don't want to do it as much anymore, I don't think.
Very good. So you see some of the things that you've heard in the meeting today, things that you can bring back not only as a piece to this group, but back to your school.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. All right, and so school has begun. If I get this right, there's such an eclectic numbers of starts. I just know it's starting because I get behind the school bus every day, every day. And it's only when I'm in a hurry, which is all the time. So thank you very much, and thank you for your interest in being on this committee. And the Honorable Tony Moore.
Unmute.
Try to unmute.
Can you unmute?
Tony, can you unmute?
Push the space bar there and hold it. Hold the space bar down, and that should work too.
You think he stepped away?
You can.
Okay, well,
At the
I
bottom,
think what we might do
Can you
is
right click on him and ask him to unmute himself in this platform?
Could the person who's administering it not unmute him?
No, you can't unmute somebody. You can ask them to unmute themselves, but you can't make them.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what we'll do next time is we'll have Mr. Moore do a presentation, and we know he'll be on. There you go.
He just volunteered
This
him.
is introduction.
Still trying to get
Is
to
he
speak. Can you hear me?
there he is.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good
I
morning.
look for
Could
an
you just
opportunity.
tell us a little?
I look for the opportunity to serve with this committee to help improve our program. I've been in education for over 50 years. I'm proud of what I've done in the past. There's a lot more to do. Carl brought up a number of issues today. We need administrative staff to help the program overall. We're going to have to increase the funding so we can serve as many students as possible. We're in the business of saving lives. Unless you've had a loved one close to you die, you don't understand how important it is to have drivers.
Absolutely. We thank you for that.
And also, I just want to say one thing about Senator Moore. He's also on the board of directors for the North Carolina Driver Traffic Safety Education Association. That's a lot in one breath. I know Eddie Jordan is on that board. I am on that board, and I know that Tony and I have been past president. Have you been a past president as well? Okay, so there's a lot of experience from that board coming into this committee, which is excellent. And we're going to be able to bring back to our board our association board the information that is being provided in this committee as well.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so with that, we thank you both for agreeing to serve on this advisory council, and we look forward to your participation. So no old business, and let's move on to the new business. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add? Our next meeting, it says November 21st on there, but I think we're
It's
looking
actually
at,
November 19th.
we're gonna, we are looking
should
to
be.
change it to November 19th. But we will definitely confirm that by the time this month is over. So we'll all be on the same page. 10 to 12, and of course, in this building somewhere, right? Okay.
We hope in a larger space. We thank you for those of you who come in person for coming into the smaller space. We're just grateful to continue to host the meetings here and appreciate your presence.
Thank you for allowing us to do that. Thank you very much for being here. I know your schedule is extremely tight, and we really do a thank you for being part of this.
Whoever did the PowerPoint presentation was probably multitasking and trying to wear a bunch of different hats and make a lot of mistakes on
Okay,
this.
that's old
Second,
business.
Carl.
We're not going to go back to that. We're in the new business part. All right, so now to make sure that we're all ready, we now have completed our agenda for the day. The floor will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, thank you. And do we have a second? Okay, got that. All in favor, say aye.
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 Sure, it's this one.
So safe trip back to wherever you're going, those online as well. Thank you all very much for your attendance and being here today. As you come up with ideas and thoughts and concerns, whatever, please feel free to email myself, Carl, and Carl's staff, and we will be looking forward to our next meeting, and we'll have equally as much information. And again, if anybody has a presentation they'd like to present, please email us so that we can get that on the agenda as well. So thank you all again.